Thank you so much for having me. Today, I'm going to talk about the pressures that exist within the veterinary profession to condone the cruel heat stroke-based killing methods in constrained circumstances. I am a veterinarian and now consider myself an animal rights activist, but I wasn't always that way. I was formerly a 4-H leader and I grew up in a rural agricultural area. I started becoming more involved with animal advocacy in 2019 when I joined the campaign to ban fur in California with Direct Action Everywhere and Compassionate Bay. And when Matt Johnson exposed the cruel practice of ventilation shutdown, I co-founded Veterinarians Against Ventilation Shutdown, which asks the American Veterinary Medical Association to reclassify heat stroke as a not recommended form of mass killing. What happens to a veterinarian working to change policy? As a result of my advocacy, and I and several other veterinarians were barred from attending the AVMA's Humane Ending Symposium this past January. And this was sponsored by Cargill. And I was also banned from the AVMA's legislative fly-in. And we have sent petitions to the AVMA House of Delegates. The first one, they voted to put the question back to the panel on depopulation. After the next petition, they refused to hear it and then changed the manual so future petitions like ours would not be allowed to continue. Back in 2020, before VSD was known, I started criticizing animal agriculture practices on my public Facebook page. As a result, this was a meme that was made about me in 2020 by the vigilant administrators of veterinary Facebook groups. And I was kicked out of veterinary Facebook groups. So the culture of the veterinary profession is one with a long history of silencing compassionate voices. So as a result of the AVMA's misconduct, thousands have left the organization to join the HSVMA, which is the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association. But unfortunately, the HSVMA has no influence over government policy the way that the AVMA does. Brene Brown really summarizes what is happening here when she says, when the culture of any organization mandates that it's more important to protect the reputation of a system and those in power than it is to protect the basic human dignity of the individuals who serve that system or who are served by that system, you can be certain that shame is systemic, the money is driving ethics, and the accountability is all but dead. If you think back on any major scandal fueled by cover-ups, you'll see the same pattern, and the restitution and resolution of cover-ups almost always happens when one person steps outside their bunker and speaks their truth. Many are concerned that those in leadership positions at the AVMA are too closely tied to the animal agriculture industry, compromising the scientific process. Recently, the director of the AVMA's Animal Welfare Division, who has close ties to the animal agriculture industry, including as a member of the Scientific Advisory Committee of United Egg Producers, Dean Foods Animal Welfare Science Council, OIE panel on slaughter in depopulation, and the American Association of Bovine Practitioners Animal Welfare Committee. At a June 2022 Animal Mortality Management Conference, she called to a friendly audience to find her evidence, even if it's unpublished, to support leaving ventilation shutdown in the guidelines. And even when only AVMA members are supposed to be the ones able to submit data. Many ask, without heat stroke-based killing methods, how do we end the lives of this many birds? While there are no humane ways to do it, the AVMA's guidelines do list preferred methods. And Animal Welfare Institute recently published a table outlining less brutal methods, and you can use the QR code to see the complete table. Additional methods studied in Europe use high expansion nitrogen-based foam that result in far more rapid unconsciousness and death. And this method failed to be integrated into the AVMA guidelines on depopulation. This oversight may have played a role in VSD becoming the industry standard form of killing here in the United States, leaving veterinarians overseas horrified. How did VSD become part of the AVMA's guidelines on depopulation in the first place? This table shows the cycle of money. Research performed at the Prestige Department of Poultry Science at North Carolina State University, named after Prestige Farms, was used to legitimize this method and add it to the guidelines. Then the USDA used those guidelines to give indemnity payments back to the very industry that funds this type of research. And even without the AVMA seal of approval, the brutal killing methods can still be used, but the industry won't be able to quell public outrage by claiming they're using veterinarian-approved methods, and corporations would no longer benefit from taxpayer bailouts. And disturbingly, ag secretaries are now even asking the USDA to consider adopting VSD as the go-to method. It's still unclear when the AVMA panel on depopulation will update their guidelines, and only AVMA member veterinarians are allowed to submit research to the panel to consider. So if you want to help us in our advocacy, you can sign on to vavsd.org and ouronor.org, and AVMA members can send an email to their House of Delegates reps and express their concern. And please encourage your local veterinarian to do the same. We will have letters and graphics on our website, and you can also email me and reach out that you could use to send them. And so one final thought from Matthew Scully of Dominion, who wrote Dominion: when you start with a necessary evil and then over time, the necessity passes away, what's left?